Check the mic, we're going live. Stories told, they rise and dive. Topics fresh with every spin. You won't guess what's coming in. Every week a new surprise. Minds awake, never lies. Conversations bold and free. Tune in now, just wait and see. This podcast is uncalled for. Catch us here, there's so much more. Laughs and tales you can't ignore. A journey that will leave you floored. In the night or in the day, just press play, we're on our way. Voices sharp, opinions bright, talking through the day and night. Guests and hosts in perfect blend. You won't want this.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to a special primary edition of the podcast. I have a candidate with me today, Mr. Erik Murray, running for the United States Senate in Kansas. One of 11 Democrats running for this seat, trying to oust Roger Marshall. So, and I'll stop the introduction from there. I'll let you pick up.
Yeah,
right.
Michael, thanks for having me. Yes, as you pointed out, my name is Erik Murray, born and raised in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. But I've been traveling the state for the last 6 months as part of my Senate campaign to beat Roger Marshall. I am in a competitive primary. I tell people that's a good thing because obviously the incumbent Marshall is so unpopular that not only do 11 Democrats like me think that we can beat him, but as we see in the news recently, even the Republican legislature passed a bill a year ago preparing kind of a graceful exit for Marshall and a whole bunch of other shenanigans that we can talk about if you'd like to go there. But what I prefer to spend time on, I tell folks, I don't need to talk bad about the incumbent or the current administration because Kansans are seeing what these policies and what these politicians are doing in our everyday lives. Working families are being asked to accept less health care, less opportunity, less housing, less honesty from our government. And I really want to talk about solutions. So I built things. I'm a commercial real estate developer. We specialize in community impact real estate development. And so I'm always working on the intersection of how do I get policies like things that are coming out of Washington and Topeka? How do I get capital, whether that's public or private markets, institutional markets? And how do I get community to all come together and figure out how do we solve some of these challenges? How do we build more housing? How do we build a more sustainable future with clean energy? How do we reduce the property tax burden on residents by charging corporations and billionaires their fair share? So I'm always working on how do we build an economy that works for everyone? And it's exciting to be able to do that, with the help of the voters potentially here in August and November at the U.S. Senate level. So that's what we're spending time talking about. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on the Uncalled For podcast and talk about it with you.
All right, yeah. Funny story about how I came up with the podcast name. Oddly enough, politically has some political roots because my first podcast, it was called Sunflower Brew. We had a habit of taking photos with all of our guests, and in one particular photo, I was wearing a Duke University hoodie, and one of my political friends commented, "Well, that sweatshirt's uncalled for."
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, Duke, you talk about rivalries. We know that political rivalries are fierce, but Duke, North Carolina, that's a pretty fierce rivalry too. So you got strong reactions on a Duke sweatshirt, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
Are you a big Dookie? Are you a Blue
I'm
Devil or what?
I'm a Blue Devil until UMKC can finally get to the tournament.
Nice. Okay, then you're going full ruse. I like
Yeah,
it.
I am a UMKC grad, so yeah,
Okay.
gotta go Ruse. So,
Nice, man. Well, good. We can
so
talk sports too then. It's up to you. So that's the interesting thing, Michael. I told you, we can talk politics, we can talk sports, we can talk Kansas City. We can talk whatever's on your mind today, man.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a lot of the problems that you brought up, lack of healthcare and all that. So a lot of it in our state in particular goes back to Brambakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broke back policies for sure, a Brownback for sure.
And I don't know how anyone outside of a certain cadre of people would want to go back to that, you know? So,
Well, but here's the thing. If we're going to get political, let's just jump right in. Republicans have run this state. They have a supermajority in the legislature. When Brownback was governor, not only did they run the legislature, they ran the governor's mansion. We're fortunate now that we have a Democratic governor in Laura Kelly, even though I'll be blunt, some of the things that she is doing towards the end of her tenure have me scratching my head a little bit. And I've reached out to her to talk about those things, and she has not gotten back to me. But I think on the whole, the fiscal policies of Laura Kelly and a Democratic governor have been certainly light years better than what we saw at a Brownback. But somehow Republicans have hoodwinked Kansas voters into this idea that they're the conservative, fiscally conservative, less tax policy. And that's just not true. We know that in the White House right now, we certainly do not have a fiscally conservative president. He's adding $1 trillion a quarter to the debt with all these foreign wars. And we know that in the Kansas state legislature, every year they talk about property tax relief for working class families in Kansas, and they never get it done. So Republicans are great at talking about fiscal conservatism, but giving tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. And working class Kansans are sick of it. And so, but there is still this kind of cognitive dissonance between, I think Republicans have done a good job of branding Democrats either as culture warriors or wasteful spenders, when the reality is that that branding exercise has tried to hide or obfuscate from the fact that Republicans are giving tax breaks to everybody but Kansas constituents. So these are the conversations that we can have. I'm not a politician, so there are going to be times where this podcast might get uncalled for or go off the rails, and I'm okay with that because I think too many politicians in both political parties are too afraid to speak truth to power. They don't want to call out their corporate donors or their lobbyists or other things. And so the beauty of me just being a kid from Wyandotte County who cares about my community, who sees the same disinvestment that's playing out in Wyandotte County, playing out in 99 or 100 of the other 105 counties in this state. I
mhm.
know that we're right next to Johnson County, and that's another interesting thing we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Johnson County is not reflective of the experience of ordinary Kansans. Johnson County is one of the 10 wealthiest counties and communities in the country. And then for me to be in Wyandotte County, which is right next door, having a completely different lived experience. And as I travel all over the state, I hear from so many people whose experience really resonates more with Wyandotte County. Our infrastructure's failing. Nobody's building housing. You know, our schools are struggling. Our hospitals are struggling. Our farms and small businesses are closing. None of those things are Johnson County experiences, yet Johnson County Democrats want to lecture me. And I'm like, hey guys, don't we need to be fighting this Republican legislature that is hoodwinking voters? So, you know, those are the kinds of uncalled for things that we talk
Mhm.
about, Michael.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Johnson County Democratic Party because I got some thoughts on that. So,
Yep.
um, uh,
Yep.
yeah, they've been, I'd say a good description would be Republican light, would be a great
Republican light.
description.
And that's where this election is going. Um, there are really three outcomes in this election.
Hmm.
One is Marshall actually shows up on the ballot in November, even though Republicans have created a path where, and I'm sure you've read that in the news the last 2 or 3 days,
I did.
Republicans essentially knew he was so unpopular. I said, man, it's an interesting game when your policies and your politicians suck so bad that you're planning like years in advance how you're going to cheat the system to keep voters from weighing in on your
Hmm.
piss poor performance. But yeah, I mean, the reality is that his colleagues in the Kansas State House, at the urging of Washington, you know, that's why Ty Masterson just earned Donald Trump's endorsement. Trump told the legislature he can't afford to lose the Senate this year. There is a very real path that a real Democrat like me breaks through and
Hmm.
beats Roger Marshall and becomes the 51st Democratic seat to stop all of this corruption and grift and hateful things that Donald Trump is doing. Well, Washington and Topeka don't want to see that. So, one outcome is that Marshall actually shows up for the election. The second outcome is that his legislative buddies have given him a golden parachute into a health and human services role in Washington as a way to cancel this election and subvert the will of the voters. And in that scenario, that's why I have a primary opponent, okay, who is a Republican in 2020 and 2024. He won't answer for me. Like, hey man, did you vote for Trump? Like, just be honest, right? Won't answer that for me, but is very much a Republican or a Republican light candidate who went on a statewide tour and said, "Oh, I'm gonna decide what they think of me as an independent." At the last second, literally at 1:30 in the morning, changes his registration to Democrat, tries to now run as a Democrat. Voters are sick of that Republican light, and I think that's all by design, though, Michael. We have to recognize that the status quo wants to protect itself, whether that is Republicans who are robbing our communities or Johnson County moderate Democrats, which are actually Republican light in many cases. Not all. I got to be careful because not all. There are some great Johnson County Democrats who actually want to see this government change. Even some rich Johnson County folks who said, Eric, I would pay more in taxes to keep our hospitals open and to keep our schools open and things like that. But on the whole, this system of money, Republicans giving billionaires and corporations tax breaks, and Johnson County and communities like Johnson County being the beneficiary of those kinds of policies, while the other 101, 102, 103 counties across the state of Kansas struggle, like my hometown of Wyandotte County, we're sick of that. So I think the third outcome is that voters rise up, that I can get this message out through the help of people like you and conversations like this to say that we're ready to stand 10 toes down for change. We certainly don't want Marshall, and we don't want a nicer, kinder version of Marshall that's just going to give us a hug and a prayer, but not actually change the policies that are robbing our communities. And so I am that third option, a real Democrat, a lifelong Democrat who understands that democratic values work, but that democratic execution and the hypocrisy of saying that you care about democratic values while still participating in these status quo Republican light systems, the voters are fed up with it. So that's what I'm excited about in this August 4th primary. Yeah, man. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about the whole Republican light thing. So of course, Marshall, when he first got elected, who was his opponent? Barbara Bollier, who was 2 years earlier, literally a Republican.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Friend of the podcast, Amy Bell, ran a couple times against Bollier for her state house. See, when she was still in the state house, and each time, Amy is as a progressive as it gets, as far as Democrats are concerned. But each time, the county party told her, "No, you shouldn't run. We like Bollier and all that." So that's that whole Republican light thing. Never mind that you have a candidate who is actually a Democrat, actually has a D next to their name, running for that seat. Isn't that kind of the point? And yes, there are a couple of elected Democrats in name only that come to mind who primaried more progressive candidates and yet still somehow managed to get elected. Brandon Woodard is one. I swear to God, that guy has no business being in elected office. When I ran in 2016 for Kansas Senate, the seat that is now populated by Dinah Sykes, who ran for that seat as a Republican, but a couple of years later became a Democrat. They ran a Republican light against me. Guy by the name of Logan Healy. You may have heard that name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, Michael, I mean, you're exactly right. And I think that's the hard part for me. Voters are fed up with that shit. Like, let's just talk about it. And so the fact that even real Democrats have had that experience inside of our own Democratic Party
Hmm.
is what creates this environment where people keep psyching themselves out that real change is not possible, right? That clearly what the Republicans are doing is not working. From Brownback to Masterson to Trump to Marshall, what they're doing is not working. But somehow the House always wins. The money always wins. These political shenanigans of protecting the status quo and just going to kinder, gentler packages of the same policies. And voters want real change. And so I think that is what is at stake. We are in a battle for the soul of the Democratic Party, just like I think that Republicans are in a battle for the soul of the Republican Party. You have both parties are fractured. Both brands are shit right now.
Hmm.
Trump and MAGA have hijacked the Republican Party and taken it off the rails of, I mean, look at Mike Pence, John McCain, Dick Cheney, folks that from a policy perspective, I don't agree with often are even saying, what is happening in this party? Uh, and I think sadly, as opposed to just letting Republicans own all of that dysfunction, Democrats occasionally become our own worst enemy with the shenanigans that you mentioned.
Yep.
We allow Republican light folks to come into our party and we allow their money and their status quo protection to somehow try to buy complicity or buy hypocrisy out of the Democratic Party. And I think again, the beauty in this moment is that we can reject that.
Hmm.
Voters are ready to stand 10 toes down for Democratic values, but they're sick of being sold out for you know, Democratic lack of execution. And I think that's the battle that is raging inside the Democratic Party right now that we need to be talking about. Do we want to be a Republican light party and anybody but Marshall party that just puts Marshall and Trump's policies in a kinder, gentler veneer, but continues to extract economically from our communities? Or do we actually want to stand 10 toes down for our values and elect leaders that are going to go get stuff done, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, and this is the beauty, man. I haven't had a career in politics, Michael. I don't need a career in politics. It is so freeing to be able to speak truth to power and just say what needs to be said.
Yep.
I'm fortunate, thanks to my public education, thanks to my background in healthcare, thanks to my ability to actually make money in community-oriented real estate development. I'm at this perfect place. I'm 44 years old. I've been I've been at the depths, I've understood the depths of personal and communal poverty. As a kid growing up in Wyandotte County, I understand where the scarcity mindset, this dog eat dog mindset comes from. But I've also, thanks to my public education and my college scholarship and the mentors that have taken me under their wing, I've understood what it means to be successful, to make millions of dollars in business. But then to say, well, wait a second, why are these dollars not being used to do the good for people and communities? Why are we not sharing? Why every time we make money, we get so greedy that we value a dollar more than our humanity? There has to be a win-win where we can still like make money because sadly, right? Capitalism is the name of the game. I tell people all the time if they want to go change it, go change it. But today, capitalism and the structure of the United States requires an understanding of how to make money. That's how you put food on the table. That's how you put a roof over your head. So if we are going to do this capitalism thing, we have got to do it consciously. And consciously means that when you make money, you do it in ways that are aligned with community. You don't hoard all the resources, hoard all the money. But here we have an economy where billionaires are fighting to become trillionaires while children, literally 10,000 Kansas children, are starving right now. And these guys want to go talk about tax cuts for the rich or Charlie Kirk Day or bathrooms. What about starving children, right? I mean, but nobody wants to talk about that. So we're going to talk about that. And it's so freeing, Michael, to
Yep.
be free from partisan shackles and to be free from political shackles and donors. I have no corporate donors. I have no PAC money. I have no lobbyists. I get to just speak truth to power. And I'm excited to do that. And the voters will hopefully get this message and decide, do
Hmm.
they want folks like myself and you, or do they want more of the same packaged in a nicer package, you know? So we'll
Yep.
see.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree. Um, yeah, that's the roots of all evil, I think, is the whole money and politics thing.
Yep.
We've been hearing this drumbeat for a couple of decades now. We got to get money out of politics, and that, I think it's especially true on the Democratic side of things. That power corrupts, and money is a part of that power. Uh, Unfortunately. And let's be honest about Republican governance. They've tried this trickle down shit since Reagan. All right,
Yep.
it has never worked, and it will never work the way they think. Because yeah, the theory is yeah, you give money to the wealthy, it trickles down. No, you give money to the wealthy, they're going to hoard it. So you know, and the only way we can stop ourselves from it is if we were to enact some sort of democratic socialism, a la Bernie Sanders and AOC and uh,
Oh,
all that. We
be careful, Michael. The National Republican Senate Committee is calling me a radical Black Panther because I want to invest in education and healthcare. And so they're calling me all these things. I mean, even you say socialism or democratic socialism,
Mhm.
that's another place where the language, coded language, again, people hear the S word and
Yeah,
lose their minds, not understanding truly that the welfare state is corporate welfare. The welfare queens are folks like Clark Hunt, who's going to take $3 billion of taxpayer money to build a free stadium for himself while
yeah,
he's sitting on $25 billion. I mean, that's a welfare queen, not a single mom in Western Kansas trying to put food on the table for her kid or the 10,000 kids that are starving. And when we talk about socialism, I always remind folks of two things. Number one, Social Security.
Mhm.
Everybody likes their Social Security, but doesn't want to admit that the reality is keeping that program solvent means that we've got to right size the tax code
Mhm.
and make billionaires and corporations pay their fair share. So
Yeah,
the number of people who love Social Security but don't like socialism, I think, is an interesting contradiction. And then secondly, the number of folks who understand what I just said, which is that billionaires and corporations are robbing us, but don't understand that that's socialism. They are socializing risk. Elon Musk built Tesla on the back of hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer loans,
hmm,
right? Taxpayers don't own a stake in Tesla, shareholders do, and Elon does, right?
yep,
And so the real socialism is this corporate welfare of socializing risk. Banks get bailed out. Tesla gets bailed out. Elon gets bailed out. Clark Hunt gets a free stadium.
hmm,
But as soon as those things go into profit, the profit is privatized. And that people want to convince us that that's capitalism, and that's not. That is rigged corporate socialism that is robbing our healthcare and our schools and our communities.
yep.
And I think that's the conversation we need to be having. But therein lies the challenge in Kansas. And there's a book about it, Michael. It's called What's the Matter with Kansas?
I own a copy.
Voters,
Yeah.
yeah, voters have been convinced to vote against their own interests. And I also blame the Democratic Party for that, though, right? Because I know that what the Republican Party is doing is cruel and hateful, and also is just shifting wealth from communities and from individuals and working class folks into the
Hmm.
hands of billionaires and corporate. But Democratic values work when we implement them. But the Democratic Party has a structural problem, and it goes back to money. The Democratic Party relies on a donor class that
Hmm.
actually benefits from the same rigged system that our values oppose, right? And so then what happens in communities like Wyandotte County, and I've seen it play out,
Yep.
Democrats, we have created the fertile ground for Republicans to misbrand us and take that mantle
Hmm.
because of our hypocrisy in participating in and benefiting from those systems that our values oppose. So, what does that do to communities like Wyandotte County? It leaves us feeling abandoned. We feel abandoned by both parties, right? Republicans are clearly not doing anything to benefit us. Trickle down doesn't work. Bathroom bill doesn't solve my property taxes, right? But the Democratic Party says, well, we're going to run a Republican light candidate that's going to smile in your face and tell you what you want to hear, but not actually get anything done. And then they wonder why it's been 90 years since we've won this Senate seat. In
Hmm.
fact, the parties were flipped. People would say it's been 90 years since a Democratic won a Senate seat. A Democrat has never held a U.S. Senate seat in Kansas because the parties were flipped the last time a Democrat held one. And the reality is that people are sick of the Republican and Republican light side of the Democratic Party, which is why our brand is arguably as bad as theirs is. And that's where you have folks like myself. I'll give a shout out to Cindy Holscher, who's running for government. She's all
Hmm.
for governor. She's also an anti-establishment. There are
Yep.
those of us who are fighting for the soul of the Democratic Party to really make this a party for working class folks and for values, not for Johnson County Republican light Democrats who want to continue to sell us out. But that's where the power, I mean, I got to be careful, Michael, because that's where the power exists today. And the fact that I just said that to you as plainly as I did means that there are establishment folks that do not want to see me win this seat. It's why the Kansas City Star publishes an Adam Hamilton thing every single day. They publish something on that guy.
Hmm.
They will not run the article that says that the number one fundraiser in this race, go to the FEC reports and look at the money. We have raised more money than any other candidate in this race from individuals all over this state and all over this country. We've not taken a single dollar from PACs. We've not taken a single dollar from special interests. 100% donations. We've raised almost $250,000. You can go look at the FEC reports on it. The Star will not write about that. The Democratic Party will not celebrate that.
Hmm.
We have created a system where we're allowing Republican light folks and values to infiltrate our party. And that's why you've got folks like myself, Cindy Holscher, and others saying it's time to buck the establishment
Hmm.
and put people over politics and parties. And so that's what we're doing. But I'm a lifelong Democrat. It hurts. It hurts me, honestly, to be that blunt about my own party. But what I've been telling people, Michael, is a kid who grew up in KCK. My mom was a public school teacher. My dad was a city worker. My aunts and uncles, GM workers, postal workers in the union. So I understand what hard work and what supporting labor and labor unions looks like. I certainly understand what tough love looks like. And that's what I'm giving the Democratic Party is tough love. When I was a kid and I got out of line, my mom would say, son, if I got to give you a spanking, it's not because I don't like you, it's because I love you, right? You know the same. This hurts me
Hmm.
more than it hurts you. I'm doing this because I love you. There are times when love has to be tough. And I'm giving that same love to the Democratic Party. It's tough love. We have to acknowledge the frustrations that communities of color have. We have to acknowledge the frustrations that young people have with us. And quite frankly, in not losing sight of the overall picture, Republicans want to paint us into a culture war party. Where we lost is that poor white folks are having the same issues, but Republicans have convinced them that they're the party for those folks. And I tell everybody, poverty is the great equalizer, Michael. But the
Hmm.
Democratic Party does a great job of virtue signaling and a bad job of solving. And once we start doing the solutions part, not only will we get communities of color and young people back into the fold, poor white folks will come back into the fold too, because poverty is the great equalizer. But both of these parties are too beholden to money and not doing the work of the people. So there you go, Michael. But that's what's
Well,
uncalled for. I love that this podcast is called Uncalled For because we're going to keep it real.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, good. And I agree with the assessment of the Star. One of the things that drives me nuts, frankly, is anyone from the right saying, "Oh, there's a the media is liberally biased." Here you are, proving that is not the case. That has never been the case. I worked in television, all right, and interned at our PBS station, all right, as liberal as it gets, supposedly. And even then, it's not all as liberal as people would have you believe. So,
Well, again, the media, who cares? The media might spread certain channels in the media might spread Democratic talking points. There's
mhm,
also channels in the media that we know spread Republican talking points. But to your point on neither, the media does not have a liberal bias. The reality is that the truth is the truth, and it is very difficult to really get the media to say as plainly what I just said to you, right?
mhm,
That both of these parties, in different ways and at different times, are screwing working class communities.
yep,
And you got Fox News that wants to be Trump propaganda, and you've got the Star that wants to be an establishment Republican light, says it's a Democrat outlet or should be leaning,
Hmm.
but nobody's talking about the real issues as plainly as we are right now. And I think that's where Americans are frustrated with the media. You guys want to talk about culture wars and everything else. You want to talk about partisan stuff. Talk about how we're going to keep our hospitals open, how we're going to get to universal health care. The fact
Hmm.
that the lack of health care access is actually the same thing that's killing rural hospitals.
Yep.
I mean, all of these things are so interconnected, and that goes to kind of the last thing that I really harp on in this campaign, which is false choices. And this reg system wants to convince us that we have to live in these extremes, that there are false choices, that either we can have everything or nothing, right? We either have all data centers or no data centers. We have all jobs or AI. We have hardworking jobs or AI takes all of our jobs. That
Hmm.
we have to be a Republican or a Democrat. The reality is that these are oftentimes false choices meant to distract us from the fact that we're all united at the end of the day around, yeah, we like our phones, we like our devices. Many of us use AI tools, but we just don't want the data center to come in and pollute our air and steal our water. We could find a happy medium on that. We all love the Kansas City Chiefs. I would love nothing more than to do my fair share to keep the Chiefs in Kansas City and get a new stadium built. But the key is my fair share. It shouldn't be all or nothing. We give billions of dollars to a billionaire or we lose our team.
Hmm.
There's a number in between and there's a negotiation in between where everybody can win. And this hyper polarization and the media and social media algorithms and everything keeps trying to push us into these false choices. When again, at the end of the day, the majority of Americans, like the majority of Kansans, want housing, we want healthcare, we want education, we want food in the fridge. These are basic life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness things. And the idea that billionaires are taking that from us in a race to become trillionaires, that Republicans are lying to our face while, creating these policies where that happens, and that Democrats are complicit in being hypocrites about it, and that the media won't tell the truth. That's why we're here on the Uncalled For podcast talking
Right.
about it.
That's
So
right. Yeah. And yeah, we have a few minutes left, unfortunately, because as a result of all these economic policies that we're talking about, I'm limited to the free service with
that's all right. This
Zoom.
podcast is going to go viral after this interview.
I hope so. I hope so. So,
We're dropping some heat here. But again, I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. So with the last 5 minutes we got, Michael, what else should we talk about? I don't. We're probably too heavy into politics now. We want to talk a little sports, talk a little life. What else is on your mind, or what other topics have you been covering on this podcast?
well, I do talk about sports from time to time, and I should. This is a good time to tell you, I was a Ram fan until they were
Yeah,
lied at St. Louis.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean we're seeing that communities are being forced into those false choices. I lived in the Bay Area for a few years. Part of why the Republicans are calling me a Black Panther. We
Hmm.
saw Oakland lose all of its teams,
Yep.
right? And both the pride and the economic harm of losing teams is real. As you talk about the Rams leaving, obviously the Raiders left.
Hmm.
Um, the impact on community pride, on jobs, on everything is real, which is why there's a happy medium where we love our sports teams, we support getting stadiums built and keeping our teams happy, but we don't break the back of taxpayers and
Hmm.
give billionaires a free ride to do it, right? And even if they did do some of that, there's no labor agreement that says that you're going to hire local or you're going to hire union. There's certainly no consideration for the fans that paid for your stadium. Wyandotte County, we can't afford after our property taxes and our sales taxes go to pay for this stadium. We can't even afford the tickets anymore in my community,
Hmm.
and so there has to be a way to level that playing field,
Yeah.
keep our sports teams, which are our pride and joy, but not do it on the back of taxpayers. So yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And NFL tickets, they're ridiculously overpriced, if you ask me. And all that. So,
It's going to get worse. They're going to start privatizing those rights packages. And at
oh yeah.
least the saving grace was at least you could watch your team on TV. Now they're going to start making you pay to even watch the games. I mean, we've got to stop letting money always win. There is more to life than money, and greed. There is love, compassion, humanity, love for our sports teams, love for each other, love for our community. And at some point, that's got to re-enter the narrative so that it is not just a dog eat dog world around billionaires turning into trillionaires while children are starving.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, it's so sad to me that that's what our political class is taking this country towards. But that's also where voters are fed up. And I think that's why we're going to drive some change this year and hopefully again in 28. We have two elections to really get our country back on the right track. 26 midterms and the 28 presidential. So I know we're almost out of time, man. What else? You said you're a Rams fan. What else?
Fuck St. Kroenke. And
Okay. Yeah.
Clark Hunt's clearly a cheapskate.
Yeah.
Despite that's probably why he's worth over $1 billion. But I will give the Royals credit, since we're talking about
Sure.
they're at least willing to pay for
Correct.
they and Hallmark 2/3 of their stadium project.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Royals have a better ownership group that's slightly more aligned. I know a few of those guys, and they're much more inclined to do right by the community than the Hunt family. I mean, we could talk even more offline. They're profiting on transactions in downtown Wyandotte County right now. People don't know Lamar Hunt Jr.'s Loretto Properties just sold a building he bought a decade ago for $160,000 or $180,000 in downtown KCK. The second the Chiefs deal gets announced, he put that deal on the market, sold it for 4x, sold it for $650,000 just on the hype of that deal. So not only are they taking taxpayer dollars to do a free stadium for themselves, they're then turning around and profiting on the private side. It's insidious, and we need leaders that are willing to call it out, man. So I'm that leader, and I appreciate you having me on. I know we're going to run into our free time limit, but hopefully this podcast is going to get enough viewers where you can charge $1 and then you can do the paid version so we can talk about this for an hour. If you can come back on in a few weeks. Oh yeah, the primary.
Absolutely.
We'll do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a part 2, and if we're lucky enough, 3-timer scope, we'll see what happens. All right.
Love it.
Well, thanks, Erik, for coming on. And Erik Murray, ladies and gentlemen, running for Kansas for the Kansas seat in the United States Senate.
Yep. Shameless promotion, erikforkansas.com. That's ERIK. Remember, the K is Erik with a K. The K is for Kansas. So ERIKFOR Kansas.com. Check me out. 13 issues and policy positions we need to be fighting for. Real solutions for real people. Not all this government grift and corruption and hatred. So appreciate you, Michael. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the Uncalled For podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you, brother.
This podcast is Uncalled For. It is hosted, produced, and edited by myself, Mike Chernievsky. Our opening music is the This Podcast is Uncalled For theme, which was created at suno.com, suno.com. Our outro music for this special edition is America the Beautiful by Pipe Choir. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 International License, and you can find this music at freemusicarchive.org. And one last disclaimer, I was not paid to do this episode. The candidate came to me and asked for this time, and I gladly granted it.
Please support the podcast and purchase our exclusive Uncalled For merchandise. T-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and so much more. Go to www.cafepress.com/uncalledforpod. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.